A question, he still looks uncomfortable discussing it, Glenn, but in many ways, was he damned if he did and damned if he didn't? Was Gareth Southgate in an impossible position?
Yeah, I think so. And that's probably why you can hear that in his voice there. He's probably just on eggshells and he's boxing very careful in terms of what he says. So, but I'm sure he's right. I'm sure it's all behind us and move on.
Do you like his honesty when he says, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Raheem had the hump with me, but, you know, I've tried to do this for the good of everybody. I had to make a decision, in my mind, and that's the one I've come to. Yeah,
and that sums Gareth up, doesn't it? He's very honest and open, and that's why the majority of the country love him. So that's a side of him that everybody likes. So I'm sure he's handled the situation the best way he feels he can, and I'm sure he'll be doing everything he can now to sort of piece the lads back together. How will we know, John, if the squad have moved on? Or, in your mind, is there no question? That's it, done and dusted, end of?
Well, no, you'd be hoping for, obviously, for a convincing performance in the game that's coming up. But the disappointing aspect, obviously, just for Raheem's point of view, you're missing out on the 1000th game.
Yep.
A big occasion for England, the FA.
Should be the game they qualify as well.
Yeah, and a little cynical view for me was if England were on 10 points and needed a win, would the same scenario have occurred? Would it? Gareth have thought, hold on a minute, OK, I'll discipline you, but let's get qualified first and we can deal with it, you know. But on the other side, for all the underage coaches at England in the setup, he set a great example. He's put a marker down on behaviour, etc.
I think that's a fair point you make there. But if you think about what Gareth said just then, he said, what's right for the country? Now, if they needed Raheem in that game desperately, he may well have played him because that was the right thing to do.
Yeah, yeah.
So he may have answered that in his own way.
Yeah, but look, for me, it could have been kept in house, and just I know it would have got out, and obviously I think these things would have got out eventually, but I don't think it would have created as much noise, headlines, etc. And look, we've all heard of training ground bust-ups, after-game bust-ups, etc. Not too many canteen.
Next day
bust-ups. Next day bust-ups, yeah. And whether it's been from a strong tackling training or a game, training games, etc. And it's always been part of it, and it has been taken into the dressing room in the training ground, the dressing room after a game, etc. And it's dealt with there and then. And as I think Raheem put a message out saying.
Yeah. Move on,
done and dusted.
I mean, the pictures looked positive, didn't they, Raheem? Joe Gomez didn't look like there's any problem.
No, and ultimately it's...
Can you fake that?
Fake which one?
Can you fake looking quite happy and everything OK?
No, I don't think they can. But look,
that's a massive positive.
They're doing what they enjoy to do. They're representing their country, and they've had a little bust-up, but I'm not being funny, it's a numbers game. There's 30 guys there. They're going to clash eventually at some point. It's just the way the world works. But you just like to think it's sort of heat of the moment sort of argument, and they react like men and just put it behind them.
The actual night, tomorrow night, will be a difficult night for Raheem, won't it? Going to support the team, he'll be there, watching them. That'd be a difficult night for him. Yeah,
of course, yeah. And to be honest, I think it's quite harsh that he's missing out, to be honest. Because ultimately, if he's done something that bad, of course we went in the canteen or wherever it may have happened, we didn't see. But if it was that bad, you get sent home completely. But to only sort of get a little slap on the wrist to say you're missing the next game, but then you're pretty much going to play the one after, it's a bit. I just thought you don't really need to do it.
Yeah, well, look, that's what I mean. If you kept things in house, then people had maybe got wind of it, say today or tomorrow, and Raheem's in the team. The next thing, I just don't think there would have been anywhere near the headlines it's getting. And I know I appreciate the manager's point of view in the sense that he wants the honesty, the family he's spoken about, to keep the harmony. Families have arguments, etc. I want to keep it open.
All right, let me play devil's advocate. I'm Gareth Southgate. The bust-up happens.
The waistcoat. got his waistcoat on.
I think mine's a bit bigger. Right, there's the bust-up. It gets out. Next day in his press conference, Gareth Southgate says, yep, bust up yesterday, Raheem Joe Gomez. Raheem was the aggressor, but he's a really important player for us. So, not a lot I can do. and he'll be starting the game as usual.
No, well, yeah. But he obviously couldn't say it like that, and he wouldn't, would he? He would just be like, I've dealt with it in-house, I'm the manager.
Yeah, but it's tantamount to the same thing. What I'm saying is, can you imagine the questions from the media? Us in the media, we would all be saying, well, hang on, how bad was the bust-up? Are those two talking? Will it cause a problem with the dynamics? Have you sorted this properly?
Yeah.
You've just allowed the player to get away with it. I think it's a little bit easy to be too critical of Gareth if you think about what he hasn't done. That's why I said, right, stop. Damned if he does, damned if he doesn't.
Yeah, and I agree. Yeah, it's not to be critical of Gareth, what he's decided. He's kind of, like I say, he's been between a rock and a hard place. I just think it would have been better for everyone if he had dealt with it in-house. I'm not saying necessarily what he's done is wrong. I just think it would have been better. And then, yeah, everyone would have been saying, well, asking and throwing 100 questions at him. But then, as the England manager, he can just say, well, I'm the England manager. I've dealt with it the best way I thought possible for the squad and for the country. And that's on my head. It's up to me.
I think ultimately you have to respect that. Gareth still believes that was the best decision for the team, the squad, the family, as he called it. And everyone's got behind it now. And as he said, they've moved on.
He's also, I think the other thing is, Gareth is not an impulsive guy, and he would have taken soundings from the senior players. We've heard about the key role that Jordan Henderson had as well in mediating this, having played with both. So, not just that those pictures look convincing, but you would hope that Gareth's absolutely right. It's done and dusted. It'd be a horrible night. You can't pretend otherwise. It'd be a horrible night for Raheem Sterling. But hopefully he'll learn from this as well. Yeah, I mean, he's never run away from a challenge. He fronts up, Raheem Sterling, doesn't he? If he sees an injustice, he's not afraid to put his head above the parapet. And then it can be forgotten.
It shows his passion as well, obviously, and the passion that he has for, obviously, Man City and the clash that they had with Liverpool. And it's obviously just possibly overstepped a little bit, but he's put his hand up and he's took what the manager said to him and the punishment on board, and he's willing to move on. So that's the most important thing I think Gareth Southgate sees.
OK, let's talk about another member of the England squad. Danny Rose has given a very candid interview where he's made it quite clear he isn't budging one way or another. He's basically said, I've got 18 months left of my deal. Chairman's told me there will not be a new deal for me. I will not be moving anywhere. I'm going to run this contract down. He's even... He said, if you see some funny stories in January about me moving anywhere, don't believe them. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, it's quite a remarkable interview, isn't it? It's so frank.
Yeah, look, and I think that's...
You know Danny, don't you?
That's what we've come to see from Danny over the last couple of seasons, that the honesty he's spoken about with...
Were you with him at Sunderland, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, and he came up and he was brilliant. He was brilliant for us. He rose to the challenge of playing in front of, obviously, the fans of Sunderland, and the Doncaster lad. He's come in and he was really, really positive, fresh, and look, he speaks his mind now, and it's great for the fans to hear that honesty. Sometimes, obviously, you don't get that from players, and I think the Tottenham hierarchy mightn't be so happy. But he spoke then about his manager, how he's got his support
very warmly,
and so it's just one to watch. But you'd imagine there could be teams out there tempted to test that resolve of Danny with an offer in January, maybe 18 months ago.
I mean, what did you make of it, Glenn?
Yes, you obviously appreciate his honesty.
Is it a wise thing to do?
Possibly not, but there seems to be heat between Danny and the hierarchy, because he talks highly of the manager, doesn't he? So, and he's been playing a fair bit, so it's usually you hear those sort of comments from people when they're totally out of the dressing room and not playing any football. But the fact he's pretty much in the fold and gets on with the manager, it is quite strange to see him so...
It's strange when you think of, obviously, Trippier leaving, England international at the time. You have Danny Rose of England international playing. You think the Tottenham don't want to keep hold of these players.
Maybe
unless they have a young kid coming through. I know, obviously, they have Ben Davis, Welsh international.
That's one of the strangest things.
Do they have someone lined up?
The fact they've made their mind up already, because he's obviously a good player. Like say, England international.
He's only 29.
Yes, that's the thing. He's only 29, and he will be hard to replace.
maybe it's a smart move on Danny's part, which basically says, just in case there's anybody out there thinking, oh, it's Danny Rose, he's a top player. All right, Daniel Levy normally pushes it till the end of a contract, but eventually gets the deal done. Danny's planted his flag in the sense, said, I will not be signing another contract here. In fact, he said, there is not another contract for me here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he's definitely forcing the hand of someone, and it's whether he gets what kind of offer would Tottenham accept for you know, from obviously was Trippier have a year?
20, he was 20 when he
Okay.
went. But I mean, the other thing as well with Spurs, it's the fact this is a worrying trend, because they've already got 3 big players we know who are up in 6 months. Alderweireld, Vertonghen and Eriksen. They're up in the summer. Done. Finito. Gone.
Well,
and over here, on the right, 18 months, Dyer, Skip, Danny Rose we spoke about, and Victor Wanyama. That's a big rebuild if that lot
well, exactly. And
goes.
obviously
We can't let it happen, can they?
they have the amazing new stadium, but is that affecting some of these decisions that they can't afford to renew to the level that these players want as well, the contract situation?
What I think they do well at the front end of the business, when they sign the young players, they sign good young players and they put them on like 6-year deals, which I think is clever, because they don't need to negotiate with the player every 2 years. They know that they did it with like David Bentley, and they get to a point they either don't perform as well as they thought, and then they stay on that contract, which usually isn't as highly well paid as they should be getting, or they do outperform what they're expecting, but they don't have to give them a new deal because they've got 4 years left. So I think that front end of the business is quite clever, but then they seem to get in this position towards the end too often with pretty much their starting players, or starting 16 of the squad.
Is it even more damaging, the fact, not just the number, but now it is such, you can't keep these things quiet anymore, public knowledge, that you've got one to wait. You can't say any other way, and I'm not questioning any of their professionalism or the way they play, but these are one-to-way players.
Yeah, and what you said there, you can't. The manager's picking them in the team at the minute, so obviously you can't question their professionalism. If Pochettino's seen them day in, day out, they're training, grafting hard to get in the team, to perform at the weekend for Tottenham, as you said, there's going to be a hell of a rebuilding job to go on there, and it's maybe something that the manager's looking at too, thinking, am I going to get the support for this?
For a Champions League finalist, Tottenham Hotspur as a club, it seems to have gone alarmingly pear-shaped in a very short space of time, doesn't it? 14th in the table.
Yeah. Well, since that day, like you say, it's pretty much been on a downward slope. But it's strange, because it's obviously a fantastic club. They've clearly got big plans going forward with, like you say, what they've done with the stadium and everything. But from rumours that we saw, there must have been a rift in the camp, a few months back. Manager, I'm in an iron if he's leaving. A lot of players, like you say, in the starting 11, I'm in an iron if they're going to go. And it comes up with that uprest, doesn't it? So there's something wrong there,
back to when you look at, is Harry Kane going to be tempted if he's seeing the quality around him, that they're not tying players down, they're willing to leave quality players go, and unless he sees the quality coming in, is he going to, hold on a minute, yeah, I love Tottenham, I love it here, I'm the captain, etc., but I want to progress my career as well. I want to do it at Tottenham, but are you going to back it?
There comes a point where
totally, not just Harry Kane, they've just been in, as you said, they've just been in a Champions League final. So
they've done unbelievable. It seems to have been all of a sudden, it all has conspired, and right now they're not in a good place.
No, exactly, and like I say, for the reasons I've just pointed out there, it's...
How did you get yourself out of it? How do they get themselves out of this?
Well,
the January transfer window could be crucial. And
it's
look,
a tough market.
It is. It's tough, but Daniel Levy's a tough operator, and he's going to have to produce a bit of magic if they are going to get out of it as quickly as they want.
Do you think there's any way back? Do you think if the hierarchy at Tottenham came back to Daniel Rose and said, look, Danny, we thought about it, maybe we got that wrong. There is a new deal. We want you to be a big part of this. Maybe they look at that as a collective. want you to stay?
Yeah, I think they need to go through the whole squad with that mentality. Find out who wants to stay, keep the ones you want to stay out of that list, and the ones that don't, let them go.
If they want to stay, they're going to have to...
Well, yeah, that's the way the market is. They've got to pay like everyone else.
And all of a sudden, fullbacks are worth a fortune.
Apparently so.
You saying they were undervalued in the past? Yeah, well, you two would, wouldn't you? Fullbacks Union.